I use he, him pronouns. And I'm here in Eugene on my food cart right now that I'm working on getting open hopefully next week. And my favorite citrus is yuzu, which I actually have some. They look like this. And they only come around like once a year. And I didn't think they'd be available for the class, or I would have had everyone try and get some. But I love them. The peel is really great, and there's not much juice, but my favorite part of a citrus is often the peel. So for me, it's great. And it's
yeah, and that's one of the cooler weather citrus too.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that grows best up here. So keep
yeah,
your
it's funny. It's you still don't ever see it because people haven't really figured out about using the peel instead of the juice. And if you just try to juice it, you get about like a drop per citrus. So that's kind of a letdown. But I'm gonna adjust my screen here really quick just so I can kind of see everyone. Cool. So as far as the class goes today, I kind of want to start with the punch, and we'll kind of get that process going and let the peels macerate with the sugar as we make our oleosaccharum. Our oleosaccharum we're making today is what I call like a quick oleosaccharum. The traditional method would be to peel your citrus, let it macerate with the sugar maybe overnight, maybe all day in like a hot part of your room, so that it slowly draws out all the oils, which is really delicious and awesome. You end up with this like goopy, delicious, oily sugar. But it does take a really long time. So I like this. It's kind of a little hack to quickly make something that is going to taste unlike almost anything else because of the extraction of the oils, but you don't have to wait all day to do it. So we'll start there, and you're going to want to get out your Meyer lemons and your caracaras here. You'll need a cutting board and a knife as well, if your table isn't a cutting board. And I want just a couple little containers to put things in as we prepare them, as well as your sugar handy, peeler, and a nice mixing bowl to mix the sugar and peels together.
So that was 4 caracara oranges and 6 Meyer lemons for this.
Yeah. And just give us a thumbs up when you've got all your stuff there handy.
Looking good, looking good. I think we're waiting on 2 more people to finish gathering. Okay, we're all set.
Good. Okay, great. So before we start peeling, we'll take one of these caracaras and we're gonna set it aside for our garnish. So we're just gonna slice it from stem to stem and this way, or bud to stem, and cut it in half that way. And then we're just gonna slice it thinly into sort of half moon, half wheel shapes here. And this is gonna be our garnish on our punch.
Where did you learn how to make this punch, Alex?
This punch, so there's a cocktail that's called Japanese cocktail, and it's not Japanese, but it is a classic cocktail. And it was supposedly made for a Japanese dignitary who was visiting, I don't remember whose bar back in like, must have been the early 1900s or something, before and after Japanese people weren't allowed in this country. So it was just made by a famous bartender to sort of honor them, but I was always drawn to it as someone who's part Japanese and was bartending for a while. And I kind of liked it, but I always wanted to make it a little more Japanese. So that has cognac and orgeat, almond syrup, and some citrus peel in it. But I like to do it with like some Nigori sake instead of the creaminess from the orgeat, and just make it a little more actually Japanese. There's no real reason besides
So
that.
it's yours. It's a signature punch for you.
Signature punch. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So got the wheels here, half wheels, set those aside till later.
Looks like we've got those sliced.
Everyone looks ready. The next step will just be to peel all 6 Meyer lemon and the remaining 3 caracaras into the bowl here. And as you do it, just be aware of how much pith is coming off on the back side of the peel. You don't have to be super delicate to avoid it. But you can see, where's my camera? The white part here. Some peelers are really thick and you'll end up with like a giant swath of this white pith, which can be pretty bitter. If that's the case and you're getting a lot of that, you can take a knife and lay it flat and just carefully sort of run your knife parallel to the board, and you can remove that pith. I wouldn't take the time if your peels look normal or whatever, but if for some reason you're getting a ton of pith, you might end up with sort of a bitter syrup if you don't do that.
And what exactly is oleosaccharum? Like, where does it come from?
So oleosaccharum, I'm not positive of the like who made it first sort of thing, but it's very widely used in sort of like a lot of pre-prohibition cocktail books, Jerry Thomas and Harry Johnson and all those famous early like bartenders. There was a lot of punches, and there were a lot of, punch was like a kind of cocktail, and there were, slings and cocktails and flips, and they were all sort of like these different categories. And punch base was almost always an oleosaccharum, meaning oil and sugar. Oleo being oil and saccharum being the sugar. So using the sugar to draw the oils from the citrus. And I love it because another one of those little Japanese principles is just like not wasting anything. And especially because, yuzu, probably the most famous Japanese citrus at this point, besides you use mostly the peel anyways. So I think it's kind of a nice thing to do. So I try to utilize peels anytime I'm going to juice a bunch of lemons for anything I'm making. I'll sort of peel them first, set them aside, and either make something like this or, dehydrate them and make tea out of it, or you can use it in all kinds of ways. And we'll see that later with the fresh kosho that we'll make. But
awesome. Well, everybody's peeling away.
Yeah, I got to catch up. I'm a little behind.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you.
It's okay. Hopefully I can catch up. This is also kind of a fun way. I decided to do 2 citruses here because each citrus peel has a different flavor profile and different qualities to it. Most oranges are really good. Mandarins, yuzu are delicious, as I mentioned. Lemons, limes are good too. They can sometimes have a little bit of a different flavor than you might want in a punch. And then grapefruit can be really cool. It's a little more bitter and it has like a mouth numbing thing, kind of like Sichuan pepper, which can be really cool if you're making maybe an infused oil or you're doing something where that sensation won't be a bother. But when I first started bartending, I was like, oh, I'll do this with everything, and definitely made some really weird stuff. But it is kind of fun to try it with all different kinds. You're never really going to get sick from eating a citrus peel. So, it's never hurts, just for science, to peel a citrus and take a bite and see what it tastes like.
Just for fun, do you want to show people your most efficient way of peeling a citrus, or how you approach it?
Oh, sorry. I thought I could see in the camera there. I just take it like this, my thumb kind of near the top, and I'm just going to kind of use the torque. I have a Y style peeler, which is really handy for citrus. And I'm just kind of mostly spinning the citrus. I'm not like swinging my peeler too much, because that's kind of how you can take off the back of your knuckle or something a little bit if you get crazy. So I just take my citrus and I just kind of try and draw from top to bottom, pretty straight peels, and I just sort of work my way around here, just following that edge all the way around. And these we have a lot of lemon peel and orange peel here, so I'm not super worried if I have like a tiny little bit like that on there. If it's easy to just pop it off, that's great, but definitely don't need to have like a completely smooth white surface here as we do it.
Linda, are you already done? You're muted, but I think that you are done. You look done.
The peeler pro.
Oh, you still have 2 car oranges? Yeah, we're using 2 for, wait, no, I think
3 caracaras. So we should have sliced 1 caracara.
Yeah, and
that
then
should leave you with 3. And then we're using 6 of our 8 Meyer lemons for this.
I think everybody's still kind of working away.
Okay, great.
You were fast.
Oh yeah, I was trying to catch up here. It's actually freezing on this food cart, which I wasn't expecting. I'm gonna like turn on the oven over here.
Yeah.
Warm up.
What are you gonna serve on your food cart, Alex?
I'm gonna be serving. The menu is gonna change seasonally. It's gonna be very sort of, I guess, farm to table sourcing, and have that be a lot of the inspiration for the like what is on the menu ingredients wise, and then kind of utilizing the techniques I've learned living in Japan and Peru, and sort of the flavors and dishes I grew up eating with my family to sort of build a menu. But in the winter times, it'll be a lot of some ramens. I'll have donburi, which are Japanese rice bowls. I'll have some sando, which are just kind of Japanese style sandwiches, little quick things, on some milk bread, which my friends over at Tailored make milk bread, and they make little rolls out of it. So I like to use those for things. And maybe I'll have some grilled onigiri and kind of expand from there. I have a lot of things I'd like to do, but I'm also trying to be realistic about it just being me here. So we'll see. But it'll be fun as the seasons change to kind of see everything that comes and see what we can make.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Oh, much better.
I really liked the pop-up you did when it was snowing and you drove food to my house. That was really nice for me.
That was so fun. Everyone was so nice. It was
Yeah,
yeah, that was really fun. I was glad it happened.
that was incredible.
I'm glad it didn't work out. I was trying to find like a spot to do a physical pop-up that day, and I'm really glad it didn't work out because I definitely would have canceled it.
I'm just glad you were okay driving around in the snow like that.
Yeah, it was good. It was fine. My car is good in the snow, but it
Awesome.
was fun. It was nice how nice everyone was.
Yeah. Oh, you get hooked up with some of that cold fire beer?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
This was a kombucha. This was a miss pour at the bar, so that's kind of a nice perk of being located at the bar here.
Yeah. How's everybody?
How's everyone doing?
Yeah. Almost there.
Cool.
Jalila, how are you doing over there? Is that your final orange? Awesome.
All right.
All right, we're almost there.
So, if anyone has finished, the next step is just going to be to cut these citrus in half to get ready to juice them. So if you have a partner or if you're finished, you can start working on that. And then we're making, oh, go ahead.
You go.
Oh, these are beautiful. Love these. We're gonna make like a punch today. So it'll be, you know, all mixed together and everything. But the different components here, you could definitely keep separate in a different situation, and either have like just a whole punch kit, sort of like you could build, you know, one at a time if you're just, you know, a couple of you and you don't want to make a big thing. Or it's something you could use in different ways, maybe not in a cocktail way. You know, you could use it on pastry, drizzle it over, you know, scones or whatever kind of thing you might make, or use it to sweeten like a glaze for chicken or something like that. So again, it's never a bad idea to just pop the peels off anything you might juice and throw it in some sugar or some salt or whatever, and then you can kind of take it in any direction you want.
And then for the citrus, are we juicing them into a separate bowl then, or are we juicing them with the citrus peels?
We're gonna juice them separate because we're gonna add the hot water into the peels here, and it'll kind of cook your juice if you do that. So I'll just get a little container for that. Put up here as everyone finishes up.
Sorry, I got a little panic on my text. I was just like, that was totally on the moon. That's leaked.
So when you're ready, when all your citrus is cut in half, you can start juicing it into a small bowl. You do want to strain out the seeds, so you can do that before or after.
Yeah, I usually find it easiest, unless you've got like a big, nice strainer or you're doing a lot. I kind of find it easiest to just juice it straight into something like this, and then just pour it through a little tea strainer or something at the end. Left my juicer at my house, so I'm using a plastic fork.
My bike's.
But
I got up to the top of Mount Tabor.
Oh, wow.
what is everyone using to juice?
We got a bunch of different things.
There's so many different little. Oh, okay, some reamers.
Emily wants to know what you would recommend if you wanted to make a virgin version of this drink.
Yeah, I would recommend using something like maybe almond milk in place of the nigori sake.
Okay.
could be good if you have that around, or and then other than that, I mean, it's going to be pretty good, I think. Flavor profile, like balance wise, one of the reasons I like brandy a lot of times in punches is because it has sort of a nice balanced flavor to it already. A good amount of sort of natural sweetness, a little roundness from the aging process. So it's not like totally neutral like vodka. It does add a little something, but it blends well with a lot of other things in a punch. So it's not gonna like necessarily be something you miss a lot of. But it does kind of tend to have a little appley sort of flavor. So like sparkling apple cider or something in place of some of the soda could be good, just to add a little of that. It's kind of generic fruitiness to it, but I think it'd be good mostly with just soda water and ice, and add a little something to give it some of that creaminess.
Yep, everybody's really working, juicing away.
Yeah. I like this punch because it's like, there's definitely some work to it, but it's not so many things like specialty ingredients, I guess. I mean, I often have sake at my house and all this stuff just kind of around. So I kind of, the first time I made it, kind of just threw it together because we realized there was going to be no cocktail for a holiday party this year. But there's definitely a little bit of squeezing that has to happen.
Okay, it'll make the cocktail taste better if you work for it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after they've squeezed the juice out of these citrus, are we done with the juiced rinds?
We are, yeah.
Okay.
There's probably something you can do with them, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
we've
you.
got most of everything out.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious how much juice everyone will get. I kind of tried to go a little bit over what I thought we would need. So you'll probably have a little extra. But maybe whenever anyone finishes, you can kind of take stock of exactly how much juice you got.
You warming your hands in the oven there?
Looks like we got
Yeah.
about half a liter.
Nice. That's great. Is that after straining it?
Yeah, we strained it.
Cool. That's great. You had some juicy ones.
Matt and Kelsey got just under 2 cups.
Okay, cool. And, you know, there's a recipe for this because we're doing a class and to give everyone sort of a heads up of what we're doing. But as we make this, as we build it all together, we won't want to add all of everything in at first. We'll want to add probably like most of the syrup we think we'll need and most of the juice we think we'll need and taste it, because every piece of citrus is going to have a little different flavor. And as well as how much flavor the peels are going to impart to the sugar, because they do contain some acid in the peels. So we'll just kind of taste everything as we go, and you can kind of adjust it there. So we probably only need about 10 ounces of juice, but hopefully everyone has a little more than that, so we can use it to balance.
Yeah, it looks like Linda had a nice full pint, so 16 ounces there. How's that juice tasting, Linda?
Good. Save some for the punch. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like people are starting to finish up their juicing. Got a couple people just chilling
Okay.
out, drinking wine, relaxing.
Great. Love that. Where are we at on time?
We're about 35 minutes into class.
Okay, great.
Give me a thumbs up if you're done juicing. Awesome. Everybody is done juicing, I believe. Emily, are you done?
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect. So the next step is just going to be to take your bowl of citrus peels and add in 3/4 cup of sugar.
Three-quarters of a cup of sugar.
3/4 cup of sugar.
I will say that when I'm choosing citrus at the grocery store, I've learned never to go by looks, but to go by feel, even if that's annoying to be the person squeezing all the limes and lemons, because sometimes the ugliest limes or lemons have the most juice.
Yeah, for sure. So if everyone has their sugar and their peels, next step is you're just gonna make sure it can be seen here. You're just gonna kind of massage it all in here. It's nice if you start with fairly dry hands here, so the sugar doesn't stick quite as much to you. And it should start to smell really good as you're doing this. If not, there's something wrong with you or your citrus. And you'll notice the sugar will go from being like bright white if you're using white sugar to being a little more of like a dusty beige kind of color. And that's when you know that you're starting to pull out a lot of those oils, and your peels will look really kind of shiny underneath the sugar. Once you get to that point and they look fairly worked, you can just set this aside, and we're going to let that rest kind of as long as possible while we work on our other stuff. So we've got our juice, our citrus here. I'm going to wash my hands, and then we'll heat up a cup of water on the stove and quickly bring that to a boil, or in your kettle, or however you want to do that.
Yeah, when you finish Massaging your citrus, we're looking for dusty beige sugar and shiny citrus peels. Should be very fragrant. And then we're going to wash our hands and bring 1 cup of water to a boil.
Okay.
And just so you guys know, I'm making a recording of this class, which I will send you at the end of class. So you can always reference back to it if you want to rewatch it and remember how you made something.
Awesome.
All right, 1 cup of water, we're bringing it to a boil. And when it boils, Alex, should they pour it over the citrus peels?
When it boils, yeah, we're just gonna pour 3/4 of a cup of it over the peels. I just figured we'll lose a little bit of the water in the boiling process. But yeah, you'll just take it. Mine's not quite boiling yet. Just if yours is ready, you can just pour it over your peels, and then you'll want a nice spoon or fork or something and just stir it all together until you dissolve all the sugar. Once that happens, we can just set that aside and let it sort of chill out and continue macerating. There.
Ted, it did get really cold today. All of a sudden, it feels like.
Yeah. It's nice to have a little bit of fire over here.
So give us a thumbs up when you've added that boiling water into your citrus peels. Looking good. We're like halfway there.
Cool. Mine is ready. Wow. And in the recipe, I said to put this in the freezer once it's all dissolved. We still have some other stuff to do here, so we don't need to necessarily do that right now. But that's sort of, if you're at home, that is the fastest way to sort of get this chilled down. You can set it in your fridge or wherever. Not as much of a rush here.
If you're not rushing and you want to make the oleosaccharum, what would you do differently?
So what I would do, if you have, a little bit of foresight and you want to do it the day before, I would do the same thing, and I wouldn't juice the citrus. I would just put it in a plastic bag like a Ziploc bag so that it doesn't dry out in your fridge. Put that in the fridge, and then I would put all the peels in a Ziploc bag as well and add in all the sugar. And you can sort of use the bag from your hands on the outside of the bag to sort of mix it in so then it doesn't stick to your hand so much. And then once you reach that same point where the peels are looking shiny and the citrus taken on, or the sugar's taking a little color, then you can just set that in a warm spot in your kitchen and just leave it. It's also something, if you're fancy and you have like hot water bath sort of thing, I've seen it done that way, where you can put it in warm water even and just hold it in that warm water for 4 or 5 hours, or at least a few hours, and it'll start to look like a really thick syrup, kind of gritty, because the sugar won't be fully dissolved. But you can leave that basically indefinitely that way, you know, at least up to 24 hours, you know, pull all that stuff out. And that's what's nice about that versus this version, is it's not watered down at all. So that's kind of the idea as to why they did it that way, I think, with punches, because it allows you to have a lot more control over the concentration of your punch. If you're adding, you know, maybe a bunch of wine and stuff, a lot of these punches would have champagne in them. You're not going to water it down by adding a bunch of wine in place of like a harder spirit.
Got it.
But this works pretty great for most things.
Awesome. It looks like everybody is done.
Cool. I'm just going to pop mine into the fridge here. Let it cool down. And we'll sort of pause the punch there, because the next step is just going to be sort of to mix everything together over ice. We don't want it to over dilute. So we'll move on to the chicken soba here. So you'll want to get out your 4 chicken thighs, your leek, and a couple more Meyer lemons. Have those handy. Some tamari, chili flakes, and we'll get started on that when everyone has those things assembled. I said tamari because that's what I'm using, but soy sauce is also fine.
And did everybody lightly salt their chicken thighs before class? Did everybody see that on their prep list? Awesome. Great. If for some reason you didn't see that on your prep list, make sure to lightly salt your chicken thighs now.
And the reason to do that ahead of time is it just, one, it helps the salt sort of penetrate deeper into the meat, but it also is sort of a dry brining process where your chicken's just going to be a little bit juicier, a little more tender. Cook it.
Hey, is everybody ready? Awesome. They're ready.
Okay, great. Whoa, my recipe looks crazy over here. I think I pressed a weird button or something and it's kind of out of order. So we'll start with the leek before we get our board chickeny, or I guess we're not going to cut it up. But anyways, so we're going to use basically the whole leek. I like to do so. A lot of people get rid of the tops because it can be a little more tough, but I just think it's kind of another fun texture as long as you're going to cook it for a little while. So we'll just take off the little stem parts and leave as much of the white on as you can.
So just cutting and discarding the roots.
Just the little roots there. And then we'll cut off about just 2 inches off of the very base here, the whitest white part here. That little chunk of white, you're going to cut split vertically this way. And then we're going to cut those into little matchsticks. There's usually like sort of a core in here of some pieces that are a little more green, you can see, versus the white. And so this core part is just going to be a little bit different. So I'll just set that aside and we can throw that part in with the leeks that we'll use in the stock. These whites we're going to use for a garnish. If yours is sort of sticking together like mine is, like this at the bottom, not coming apart, you can just cut it a little bit further down. That means there's a little more of the root still on there. And then with these little stacks here now, you've got kind of like stacks of squares. We'll just set those flat on the cutting board in their little stack. And you're just gonna cut carefully, letting your knife, like drawing and pushing your knife so that you're not pushing super hard down on the leek, will sort of allow you to cut nicely without pushing this this leek to the side. And what you're going for are little matchsticks like this. Oops, don't put them on your computer. Oh, there you go. And you'll just do that with the rest of that little white chunk you removed. In Japan, they have like a special little, it's like a tiny, between a leek and a green onion, and it's called negi. And that's what you would usually do this sort of thing with. But it's some places have it. Sometimes they have it at the Asian market, or some farms would grow it for us sometimes when I was at Meiji. But a leek works pretty well. It's not quite the same flavor, but it's very similar. And if you get to a point where your leek wants to like wiggle around here at the bottom as you hit the last curve part, you know, it's okay to save this little piece and put that in with our stock. You know, don't cut the tips of your fingers if you start wiggling around there.
If you want to show us one of your matchsticks, show off a little bit, go for it. Looking good, you guys.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very nicely done.
Love it. And we're going to use these today, obviously, but this is something that does hold pretty well for a few days in the fridge if you put it in a little container of water as well. So if you have a little extra at the end of this, you can do that. And really, we're just using that little chunk because that's all we need, but you could do that with the whole section of white. And you would just want to sort of cut it into those 2-inch segments so that it's workable for your knife. But it's a fun thing to have. Like right now, it's not really green onion season, but this kind of works in place of that on a lot of dishes. So you can mix it in with rice or put it on top of, whatever kind of thing like we're going to do today. So we'll just set those aside here. And then we'll take the rest of the leek here. And I find it useful when I'm working with a big, long vegetable like this to cut it, because we're going to split it vertically. But I like to just cut it at a more workable segment based kind of on the length of your knife. You know, if your knife is only a few inches long, you're trying to cut this whole thing, you have to do a lot of work. So I just pop it in half because I have a long knife. You pop it into thirds or whatever. And then I just carefully cut this way on it. And then we don't need to be like super precise or delicate with this cutting. You know, there's a nice thing about the irregularity in a soup like this of sizes of things. So you just kind of, you can just quickly sort of cut it into about a quarter, between quarter and half inch chunks. And leeks, I know it said in the notes to like wash your vegetables ahead of time, and hopefully you did that, but leeks are pretty hard to wash before you cut them. So you may notice, like I'm noticing, that there's some little muddy spots here. So I don't think I mentioned this in the recipe notes, but we'll take this and we'll put it in a little bowl. And then we will rinse it with some water now that it's cut, and because the mud just gets all in between the different layers here. So put this in any sort of bowl that'll fit it all, and just run a little water over it and work it with your hands quickly. And we're just going to cook this in water, so they don't need to be like really dried out. But I just like to kind of put water mostly up all the way in the bowl and work it a little bit, and you'll sort of see the silt sort of run off there, and you can dump off most of it. Hey. I've just got a whole bunch of water in here. It's like kind of quickly mixing it up here.
Sorry about that. I have a very loud dog.
He's so nice though.
He's all talk.
Yeah.
All right, looks like everybody's washing their leeks, doing good.
Cool. And when my grandma would do this, she would always use her hand. It was like her strainer, but I just used a strainer, so you can do either one.
Grandma hands tend to have magical powers.
Oh, crazy. She would do rice that way too.
What?
It was like a whole process. I recently like slightly figured out like the secret to it, but it was crazy. Like she would get like every drop out of the rice. And yeah, it's awesome. Cool. So the next step, once all the leeks are washed, is going to be to make start our fresh citrus kosho here. That's just sort of like a term I'm using. I don't really know what the correct term is for this kind of condiment. It's usually yuzu kosho, a very popular Japanese condiment made with chilies and yuzu zest and salt. But we're just going to do it with Meyer lemon and some dried chiles and salt as well. And then we're just going to use it fresh. There'll probably be a little bit left over. And then that you can, if you're into, you know, fermenting things here and there, you could just do that as you would any vegetable, ferment at room temperature for a week or 2 weeks, or you can just throw it in your fridge and it'll keep kind of indefinitely and start like lightly fermenting over time with the salt there and be delicious, I think.
Everybody ready to make the kosho? Yes, they're ready.
Yes. Okay, great. So you'll want your 2 Meyer lemons here and a small bowl. We'll just peel these once again, as we did before. This one's a little more important to be wary of how much pith you're taking off. So like if you notice a lot, don't make sure you're not like pushing super hard into your citrus. You're just kind of starting it and letting the peeler work its way down as you pull it. The nice thing about Meyer lemons is the pith isn't too bad on these, which is another reason to use them in place of a yuzu. I never really knew that Meyer lemon were a Chinese citrus, so
I didn't know that either.
fairly recently, but they're a cross with the mandarin and the lemon, which makes sense flavor profile wise for sure. But it's kind of cool. It explains why I like it in that sort of yuzu kind of way, which is sort of in that same idea of a little between a mandarin and a lemon. And then once you've got some peels off, or you've got those peeled, we're going to cut them the long ways into thin sort of julienne strips here. And then we'll bundle those together and we'll cut them into really fine dice, as fine as we can. So once you've finished, I'll just kind of start working on them here and you can kind of tune in what I'm doing.
So we're thinly slicing those citrus peels into like a julienne, similar like matchsticks like you cut the leeks into.
Yeah, so it's kind of, they should end up sort of like this here. And then I'm just kind of careful to sort of try and keep them aligned as I move them out of the way to do my next bit of peels. Just makes it easier later for the dicing process. And you can stack them together as you feel comfortable based on the sharpness of your knife and your knife skills. But if you're noticing you try to stack it and they kind of move around, you can definitely just do them one at a time. When I dry my citrus peels, as I was mentioning earlier, this is how I leave them in this state, sort of the shredded long ones. And you can just like pop them in the oven on some parchment paper and leave it at like your lowest setting in the oven. You know, maybe for a few hours till they're nice and dry. Or if you have a dehydrator, you can do that, or a really sunny window in the summer. So I've got a nice bundle here that are pretty much all facing the same way, and I'll just work my way across here. Once you get into the, I know everyone's still kind of maybe working on cutting julienne, or maybe you're already done. But if you want to look this way for just 1 second, when you get to the bundle stage and you're cutting these little dice, you may notice as you cut down, it sort of splays apart this way, which is natural to happen. And a way to mitigate that is to cut as you move your knife back, drawing it this way, and then pushing forward and using the heel of your knife to cut through as you go forward. And that will sort of do a gathering motion of your bundle there. And you won't end up with it splaying and like part will be long and part will be short. So just sort of drawing and pushing will kind of continue to help gather at each pass with your knife. There's a good technique for doing this with green onions or anything like that as well.
Everyone's looking really focused right now.
Great. Inevitably, as you get to like the last little bit, it gets pretty tough. So just continue to take your time and reset when you need to.
And about how much of the citrus peel finely diced do they want?
How I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of one of those things that the spice of the chile that you use is always going to be different. The intensity of the peel is always going to be different. It's kind of hard to say. I would just use all of it.
Yeah.
And then, but what I have here, I can put it into this little measuring cup and tell you kind of how much I have. I think these 2 Meyer lemons I had were a little bit big, so it might be a little bit more than some other people have. I end up with about 3 ounces, so a little over a quarter cup here. And I'm just going to take those and put it into a bowl.
How's everybody doing with that mincing of the citrus rind? Good to go? Looking good? Looking good? Jalila, how's it going over there? Still cutting, you got it. Matt, how's yours? Good. Emily? Awesome. Okay, we're just about there.
Okay, great. I just have these chiles, so I'm just going to quickly cut them. I forgot to crush them ahead of time. So the next step, as everyone wraps up, or is maybe already wrapped up, is going to be, we're sort of doing the same thing that we did with the principle of the oleosaccharum, except we're doing it with salt and chiles here. So we're going to want to pull out that same oil and let it sort of macerate here with all these ingredients. It depending on what sort of chile you have and what sort of level of spice you like, you can certainly add more than the teaspoon here if you want, but whatever you prefer there. But I think it's a good spot to start. You want it to be like pretty spicy and salty. It's definitely like a condiment that you'll add. It's not something you would ever eat on its own. So take the salt, and we'll just mix the salt right in your teaspoon of salt and your teaspoon of chiles in there. These chiles I'm using aren't very spicy, so I'm going to add considerably more here. And what you want to do is just mix it all up really well. I'm not going to use my hands on this one just because of the chile, and I don't want to burn my hands. If you have gloves, you could do that and really work it in there. But the salt is a little more efficient at this than the sugar on its own, I found. So I just work it. You'll kind of notice it goes from like super dry to being just like, oh, it sticks to the bowl a little bit more as you go. And again, it'll get a little bit, just a little bit more shiny. You'll sort of start to see the oils smear on the side of the bowl there. That's a good sign that you're getting there.
I really love the combination of citrus and chilies. I love it in Mexican food. I love it.
Yeah.
Anywhere that's combined, I always really enjoy those flavors together.
Yeah, it's awesome. I didn't grow up eating this very often. Have it every once in a while, like when we would go out to dinner with my grandma or something, but she's not really a spice person, which is pretty common in Japan. There's not many people eat spicy, and then the people that do eat like the craziest, spiciest thing ever.
Yeah, like
It's
wasabi is such like a specific kind of spice. It's almost less of a
That's true.
flavor. It's more of like an experience.
Yeah, I don't even think of it as spicy. Like, doesn't even enter my mind that way. But yeah, it's so true. So mine's starting to get, I guess, soft is how I would describe it. And a little more clumpy, sort of as it's working. Definitely tell it's sticking to the side of the bowl quite a bit. So that's probably good once yours reaches that point. A few things away here.
Linda, is yours quite spicy? Did you taste yours, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Mine's pretty good. It's not very spicy. These
Mm.
peppers are pretty mild. So I'm happy about it though, where it's at. I'll be able to add a little more of it to my soup. So I'm just gonna quickly wipe things up. If you touched your chiles, I would recommend washing your hands, which I'm gonna do.
Does everybody have a kind of clumpy and soft and shiny H.o.W going on? Maggie does.
And one thing
Matt does.
to do is definitely taste it. And as mine's kind of lingering in my mouth here, I'm noticing I kind of want it to be saltier. You want it to be like, since it's that sort of chili citrus condiment, you want it to be more intense than you would really enjoy having it on its own. And mine was kind of a little too tasty. So I kind of want to push the salt a little bit.
Yeah. Matt wants to know if it's too spicy, will the salt help cut the spice?
I mean, in a certain way it will, because you'll probably just add less of it to your dish, because otherwise you'd make your dish too salty. But it won't really. affect it very much. But again, we're not going to add that much to the broth here. So if it tastes really spicy and really salty, that's great. That's kind of right where you want to be, in my opinion.
So yeah,
if you don't like spice, one thing you could do, which I was going to mention, is you could add a little of the juice from these ones you peeled. If you don't like much spice, or you think you're just too spicy, that would probably dial back your spice a little bit by adding some of this juice there. So that's ready. I'm going to set that aside. Everyone's kosho ready at that
a
point?
lot of thumbs up. Everybody's good.
Love it. Love it. Okay, next step, we're going to take our chicken leek, tamari, and a couple quarts of cold water and put that into a pot.
So you should have 4 seasoned chicken thighs, 2 quarts of water, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and the sliced leek, not the batons of the white leek. Those are going to be a raw garnish, but the half moon shaped leeks are all going into a pot. Chicken, leeks, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 quarts of water.
And just the reason I chose the skin on and the bone is that it's just going to add a lot of nice fat and help the chicken keep from drying out as it's sort of boiling in there.
And 2 quarts of water, that's 8 cups, in case you are don't have a quart measurement.
Once you have all that assembled in the pot, you can just turn it on to sort of medium-high heat here. Should sort of kind of just cover everything in there for you.
And give us a thumbs up when you got all that on the stove. Looking good, Jalila. Ahead of the curve. Good job, Kelsey and Eileen. Nate. Linda, do you have a question?
I was just checking if this is where you add the soy sauce. Do you add it to the pot now? Okay, thank you.
2 tablespoons. Looks like we're just about there.
Cool. So that's going to do its thing here. It'll take a little while for that to come up for sure. But just keep, corner of your eye on it. We don't want to really boil it all together. We just want to get it up to a boil and then turn it down to a light simmer so that we don't overcook everything. And when you cook the chicken at a higher temp like that, especially in water, it's a super efficient heat transfer into the chicken, and it'll sort of squeeze out, it'll like tense up the muscle, and it'll squeeze out a bunch of the juiciness out of your chicken, and it'll end up with a little more of a rubbery texture. So just making sure to try and catch that before you really hard boil that, and get it down to a simmer. In the meantime, we can fill a pot that we'll use for our soba noodles with water, and we'll just kind of bring that up so that it's nice and hot. And when we're ready, sort of at the end of everything, to cook off those noodles, we can just bring that right back up to a boil really fast. And I do like to add some salt to the noodle water, similar to how you would think about with pasta. This dish is pretty light, which is pretty typical for a soba type broth. So making sure your noodles are seasoned as they cook is going to keep it from tasting kind of too light or watery, and everything will kind of be able to be seasoned and shine without having, relying on a super intense broth to season everything else.
Gosh, this meal sounds so nice right now. So comforting to have this like chickeny noodle soup that's all citrusy and spicy. It's one of those situations with Alex where I'm like, gosh, darn it. Why can't I wish I could cook alongside too.
Okay. I mean, you could come over.
Thanks. I have plans, but I totally would.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got that going, and I'm just gonna pour in a good amount of salt here. That water. Just sort of let it come up. And while that's working, let's see, maybe take a peek at your chicken here. Mine's not out of simmer yet, but it's starting to be some little lazy bubbles around. Curious if everyone else is coming up quickly, or if my restaurant stove is kind of hot or something.
So powerful.
I don't know.
How's everybody's chicken water doing? Seems to be pretty
Sitting
good.
there.
Some people are getting there. Some people are going slow.
Good. That's where I think it should be. I think I had mine probably up a little too high. So if you've got a nice clean workspace, we can move on to working on the tiradito a little bit.
Matt
if you
wants
don't
to
have a
know
clean
if
workspace.
Matt wants to know if it's possible to oversalt your pasta water, your noodle water.
Yes. No, it is possible. It's probably a lot
Yeah.
of water, a lot of salt. I mean, to get to that point.
The
I've
Italian,
never really tasted it.
yeah. The Italians say your pasta water should be salty like the ocean. So
Yeah.
that's usually what I go for.
Yeah. So yeah, it should be fine. Whatever, however much you put in, it sounds like you guys didn't blow it anyway, so no big deal. So while this works, we'll start on the tiradito. The first thing we're gonna do is cut the grapefruit into supremes. Depending on your knife skills, a lot of times the easiest way to do this is with a paring knife, which I will get mine out so that we're all on the same page here. And this way of cutting citrus is just really nice because it removes the bitterness of the pith and the sort of texture of the membrane between the segments. So it's a nice thing to do. If someone does this for you, it means they probably care about you, because it is a little bit of effort, but it really makes a difference, especially with a fruit on the bitter side already, like a grapefruit, that removing any excess bitterness really helps it have a nice balance in texture in the dish. So to do it, we're just going to cut the top and bottom off, so we have a nice flat surface on each side. Depending what kind of grapefruit you got, some have really thick piths, like this thick. Some have a little thinner. This is pretty standard, I'd say. And you just want to get to where you can kind of see where the segments are, but you don't want to cut so deep that you're wasting a lot of fruit. We'll do that on the top and bottom. It's best if you're unsure to sort of, oh, sorry, I'm not in view, to do sort of a few slices. My chicken is up to simmer, but it seems like I might be ahead of everyone. In this process, don't lose track of your chicken. So I've got mine cut just to there. You can see all my segments here.
Looks good. Looks good. Nice.
Did everyone go with red grapefruit, or did anyone get like a Oro Blanco or?
I'm seeing all
Oh, it looks like,
reds, ruby reds.
okay, I thought Delilah had something different over there.
Do you?
Looks like an Oro Blanco or something like that. Those are really, really yummy sometimes. So, and then we're just gonna cut away the skin, kind of using like a sweeping motion down each side, really similar to how we work the peeler. It's kind of the same idea. Again, as you start, it's nice to take off less, and it'd be better to end up with a little pith like this here on your first cut. So you can kind of start to see where that pith is. And, you know, we're not in a restaurant and we don't have to do like 30 of these. So it's better to take a little extra care and not waste fruit than to like blaze through this, you know, and win the race.
Matt already
and you
Matt
won't
already won the race. Matt already knows how to do this, and he's just over there just like supreming his grapefruit. Yeah.
Love it. Well, in that case, I guess I should. So just as you go, like it can be difficult to see the bottom side of the fruit, and that's okay. Don't sweat it, because after you work all the sides, you'll just flip it over and pare off the last little bit there. If you're doing a good job, you should be exposing most of your segment here. Maybe you've got a little, which we'll trim off at the end. And your fruit shouldn't have, or your peel shouldn't have very much fruit on it. You know, it should be just mostly pith with just a little bit of fruit left behind there. So I've finished cutting the main chunks off both sides, and now I'm just sort of going back and using my knife to sort of remove any white spots here that I see that I sort of missed. And then go ahead and let Gracie know with a thumbs up when you're got all your exterior skin, unless you already know exactly what you're doing. You just pop all your segments out.
Nice, Peggy. Yeah, you can go ahead and hold up your naked grapefruit when you're done. Show it off. Oh man, Matt, you definitely won the race there. Linda, I would take a little more. Yeah, Linda and Matt, I would both take a little more time to trim off that white pith around the edges there. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Love it. Another reminder, don't forget about your chicken. I think some of yours should be getting pretty close at this point.
Delilah, can I see your grapefruit? Yeah, just go a little deeper in on the pith.
And just so you know, for this dish, one grapefruit should be plenty. So if you do cut away a little extra, you know, that's okay too, of the pith, you know, and you definitely don't want any pith left on there. Zach, that's looking pretty good. I'd say definitely keep working a little bit on the edge there.
This is definitely one of those things that once you've got it, that's beautiful, Matt. That looks perfect.
Love that.
Once you've got it, it's a great thing to have in your back pocket. I feel like it really can elevate a lot of dishes to have citrus that is prepared in this way. That's looking much better, Delilah.
Yeah, looking good.
It's a little bit more off, just a touch.
Has anyone turned their chicken down to a simmer at this point? Yes?
Yes.
Cool. You kind of just want to simmer for probably 5 minutes, I would say. So if that 5 minutes has passed, now would be a good time to take your chicken out of the broth and put it into a bowl. Mine's at that point.
So we're just checking the chicken for doneness. And how might they check it?
So a good way, if you've got a food thermometer, a probe thermometer, that's a good thing to use. You can just stick it right into the center and see. Another way is to just feel with your finger. If you've got the finger chicken test dialed in. But a lot of times with a thigh like this, you can just sort of see. Mine's a little underdone. because it sort of came up too fast and I turned it down. So I'll just let mine go a little bit longer. The nice thing about it being on the bone and with the skin on is it's gonna take a lot more to dry out the chicken. So if you're unsure, I would edge on the side of a little overdone than underdone for this chicken. Probably the opposite of what I would say if it was chicken breast in there. And the top of my broth has some nice sort of scum here on it. And so I'm just gonna like try and scrape off a little bit of these impurities here on the top and remove them. But try to leave as much of the sort of fat that you can see on top of there in there, because that's gonna add a lot of good flavor to this broth. The buckwheat in the noodles, the soba noodles, I think it's a little more hearty, a little less sort of glutinous than like a ramen noodle or something like that. So that having that extra fat in there helps give it a little more sort of oomph and richness to the dish. You don't want it to taste too healthy, even though it is.
And just a time check, Alex, you got 1 hour left.
Perfect. We're doing great. Right. So sort of multitasking a little bit. I will now do my segments. I think everyone's checked their chicken, got all the pith off the outsides. I've seen it done all kinds of different ways. Some people kind of do it like they're cutting an apple. Some people like carefully do it this way. I like to put it on its side, like as if it was a wheel. It was gonna roll around that way. And I'm just gonna take my knife and I'm gonna run just to the right. I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed, maybe the opposite. Just to the right of a membrane here, and just let the sharpness of the knife work its way down. You'll feel if you cut through the membrane, you want to stay to the right side of it. And then on that same segment that I've now started to separate, I'll cut it away from the other membrane on its right side. And I'll remove it, and you can see if there's a little piece to remove there. But we just sort of got a nice clean piece here. It does have a couple seeds. So I want to pop out. I'll just set those aside. And then you just, what was that?
Do you want them to keep the grapefruit rind for anything?
No, you can discard the grapefruit rind. And then just continue the process, cutting on the right side of the membrane that you've exposed with each slice, and then cutting on the right side of that slice to remove it. Sometimes there's a sneaky little membrane on the inside that you kind of have to do some surgery on. But I found this to be the most efficient way, and you can just kind of sort of just continue rolling this citrus as you go. You'll end up sort of just folding each flap of membrane down like that as you go.
Is this making sense to everybody? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Jalila, you got it? Awesome. Linda,
Good.
does it make sense to you? Kind of? Emily's got it.
Cool.
If you want to show us one of your segments, just to confirm that you understand the technique here. Looks perfect, Kelsey. Beautiful. Looks great, Jalila. Yeah, Linda, you got it. Yes, perfect. What, Emily, I don't know your husband's name.
Zach.
Zach. Okay, great. Thank you. Looks great, Zach. Perfect. Pristine.
So I'm about halfway done. And you can see I've got sort of this nice layering I'm doing as I come across each layer. This mess of membranes, we will squeeze the juice out when we're done to add into our leche de tigre. So don't just throw that away if you're moving quickly. And as soon as you finish this, it's probably a good time to do another check on your chicken. Whatever that may be. Your last segment should end up basically resting flat on the cutting board. Yeah,
Chicken should be about 160 is the good temperature for chicken. 160, 165 is a good temperature for the chicken.
and I'd say on this one, towards 160, if you're using a thermometer, is going to be great because it's going to sit for a little while and continue sort of some carryover cooking. And then right before serving, we'll throw it right back in the broth to bring it up. So it'll definitely reach that 165. So I've got my big bunch of membrane and I'm just squeezing it over a container here. You could use a bowl for this as well.
Squeeze the membrane. When you're done taking all the little segments out.
Then you can just throw that away. Sometimes if I'm making a salad, I'll do this and I'll use that in my vinaigrette or whatever. It's always just a nice little extra bonus juice. Or you can make yourself a cocktail. Cocktail for one.
Mm.
How's everyone doing?
Yeah, how's this grapefruit segmenting going? Linda, you look very concerned with your grapefruit. You don't like doing this? Nate and Maggie look happy about it. Okay, well, you won't have to do it much more. Oh, it's kind of falling apart on you.
It's okay. That's just fine. I would say don't worry. I know sometimes grapefruits can run a little on the dry side, the inside. Sounds like Linda's got one of those. Oh no.
Well, don't worry about it too much. It'll still be very delicious in the dish.
Absolutely.
I have found that this is one of those things that it helps to have quite a sharp knife with. So sometimes
That's
if
true.
your knife is dull, it can make this really, really challenging.
Very true.
All right, just give us a thumbs up when you're done segmenting the grapefruit and you've squeezed the juice out of the membrane. Okay, almost there.
Okay, cool.
And don't forget to check on your chicken.
Always checking chicken. Hmm.
There's a very cute baby in the class right now. So has everybody checked on their chicken? How's the chicken doing? Good. Did you get your chicken out of the broth? Not everybody's chicken is done, but looks like about
Okay,
60% of our, no, 80% of our chicken is done.
mine is also done
Great.
here, which is good because I'm having some issues with my stove here.
Hmm.
Not really sure what's happening.
Ruh-roh.
I'm gonna go check on that really quick outside, see what's going on.
If it's a gas line thing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be two full tanks.
Was everybody able to get hamachi for this? Awesome. Yes. All right. That
That's
is great. Beautiful. Yes. Some nice looking hamachi. You got the belly on there, Zach. That's going to be really good.
Mhm.
Matt, how's your chicken doing? 3 minutes. Just needs a sec.
Hmm.
All right. Emily, you bought, or Zach bought a whole hamachi? Is that what? Where did you even get that?
It's amazing. What?
Oh,
H Mart in Portland. Yeah, they've got an amazing.
Oh, you guys have H.Mart.
yes.
I've never
I
been
forgot
before.
about that.
I've been forever. It's amazing. Like heaven on earth for a person.
That's awesome. Alex, did you figure out what's going on with your stove?
I have not figured it out,
Uh-oh.
but it's okay. We'll get through it. I
Okay.
may not be able to cook my noodles right, but other than that, the show will go on. So everyone is talking about hamachi. Hopefully, okay. I have some flames here. It's looking good
Okay, good. I'm glad.
now. I don't know if it's just because it's so cold. I don't think that should really make a difference, but we shall see. Looking flame on. Okay. So it's good timing to talk about the hamachi. We should get it out. Or no, we don't want to do the hamachi quite yet. Let's make our leche de tigre. Now that we have our segments done, set those aside. We will take that grapefruit juice, and we're going to add juice from the Meyer lemons to it. Just juice them the same way you did earlier, and then we'll strain that again.
Your hands are going to be so worked out from squeezing all this citrus today. I'm teaching cooking classes to teenagers right now on 2 days a week. And I asked one of them to juice limes the other day, and he said, "This is too hard. I can't do it." And like he came up with this method of going like this, putting the citrus between his hands and going like this. But he was like, "I can't. This is too much for me." I was like, "Come on, you can do it."
Are you teaching that online?
No, I'm actually
Or
going.
in
I
person?
go to this high school and help out. The kids cook lunch and breakfast for the whole school.
Oh, okay. I saw that. I didn't know that was you doing that.
Mhm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's
So
been
cool.
really fun. But yeah, I had one of them grating butter for like a pie crust, and he was like, "I can't. This is too hard." They're always telling me that what I'm asking of them is very unreasonable.
So funny.
So leche de tigre, milk of the tiger.
That is correct. Tiger's milk. It's like those energy bars. Yeah, so we're gonna make that. It's kind of traditionally the base of ceviche, and tiradito is the sort of Nikkei cousin of ceviche. In Peru, there's a large Japanese population. They have a whole cuisine there called cocina Nikkei, which means Nikkei cuisine, Spanish. And they've had a big impact on especially the preparation of seafood in Peru, even outside of the more defined Nikkei dishes. So in Peru, the ceviche tends to be a little more focused on the fish and the flavor of the fish, as well as the flavor of the leche de tigre. But traditionally, leche de tigre is like the base, the driving factor of ceviche. So this one that we're gonna make is a little less intense than a lot of leche de tigre. It doesn't have the lime in it, which is gonna be a lot higher acid. And the idea is to really punch the fish and kind of force acid cure it really fast. This is a little more to flavor and complement the flavor of the fish. And so tiradito means little strips. So we're going to cut the hamachi into sort of sashimi style strips, and then place this leche de tigre around it and garnish it that way, rather than mixing it together like a ceviche. But the same process we're going to use to make this leche de tigre, you could make a more traditional style leche de tigre with lime and some chile and salt, and then use that to dress a ceviche, and take it to whatever sort of curing level that you like that. So got my stuff juiced here, and just gonna quickly strain it again. Then we're gonna add our ají. If you found some ají, I use this one because my brother and sister-in-law make it here in town. It's kind of the only Peruvian ají that there is around here. I got the yellow Uchukuta fire, which is more spicy than the red, because I like really spicy. Whatever you're using is probably fine, but this kind of adds a little authentic Peruvian flavor to it. And I think I told you to add a teaspoon of it. But again, depending on what you found and your spice preference, take a little taste of what you're adding, and you can add more as we go. We can taste it. But so I'll just add a nice scoop of that in there. And then I'm also going to add, what's happening? Sorry, computer's having a problem here. Everything's happening. In my recipe. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you're gonna add your hot sauce, the miso, which is 1 tablespoon of white miso. And we're gonna mix that well. If you have like an immersion blender or a quick little blender, that's also a fine thing to do this in. I'm just gonna do it by hand.
So it's a teaspoon of hot sauce and a tablespoon of the white miso into your Meyer lemon and grapefruit juice. And you're going to mix
Correct.
that really well. You can use a blender if you want, or just do it by hand.
If you're doing it by hand, it's good to just sort of use the back of a spoon or fork to sort of smash up the miso against the wall of your bowl or container that you're using. Just sort of break it up so it's not in a big clump. And then it should dissolve pretty readily in the liquid here. Smells good.
Yum.
Ooh. Seeing a lot of different stirring methods here. I like the mortar and pestle. Is it a mortar and pestle? Hard to tell. Cool. Oh, spoon and strainer. That's good. Miso. Yum.
Oh, that sounds so yummy.
It's good. Mine tastes great, really great. I'm gonna add a little more salt to it. Again, similar to the yuzu kosho, this is a condiment, not a broth. So you kind of want it to be extra salty compared to soup, something like that. So just go ahead and taste it as you go. If you think it tastes great and just a little bit on the salty side, you're there. Once you've got your leche de tigre and your segments ready, you can put away the rest of your stuff and make yourself a nice space on your cutting board to cut the fish. Let me know when everyone's cleaned up and you have your fish out and ready to cut up.
We're getting there.
Perfect.
Yeah, we got about a half hour left to just do all the finishing touches.
Mhm. Right
All
where
right.
we want to be.
Give us a thumbs up when you're ready to slice some fish. All right, we're looking good. We're there.
Cool. Does everyone's fish have the skin on it?
Yes.
Looks like yes. Okay, cool. So we'll
100%.
start with removing skin. I'm not sure how everyone's piece is. Mine's a little bigger because I'm making a little extra. If yours is in a big square like mine is, it's nice to cut it once into a little more narrow piece here. So I'm going to do that because I also have a little of this sort of bellyish piece here that's thinner than the rest of this nice loin. So as long as you have a nice piece, what you're going to do to remove the skin is place the skin side down on a cutting board. And then you're just going to make a little incision here,
I would just
the
watch
base.
Alex for right now and then cut your fish. Just watch because this is a important technique here. So just yeah, there you go.
So we're going to put it skin side down. Just going to make a little incision. And then you're going to run your knife while simultaneously grabbing a little bit here that you've left yourself with that incision to pull the skin away from the knife this way. And your knife, you want to be parallel to the board. And it really helps to do this right at the edge of your board, because otherwise the bolster of your knife or the handle can sort of run into it and you'll end up with a weird angle and you'll take off a bunch of fish. So just going to slightly cut in. Mine has a little piece of bone right here. So I'm just going to kind of use that as my starting point. And then, so I've got a nice little spot to grab onto right here, right below my knife. And I'm just going to work my knife here. Now I'm flat and I can just sort of pull and very gently work off this fish. I wasn't doing much cutting at all. And I've removed basically just the skin. There's a little bit of meat on there, but not a big deal. So go ahead and give that a try. This is more fish than you really need for this. So if you lose a little bit in this skinning process, that's okay.
That looks real good, Linda. That looks perfect.
Wow. The Japanese roots coming through.
So yeah, very important to cut straight down and give yourself a little something to hold on to kind of pull towards yourself while you push the knife away. Alex, did you get your hamachi at Newman's?
I did.
Nice.
Got it at Newman's. They had it. Right
Looks
there
good,
in the
Matt.
case. Really nice. Be fun to go to H Mart though and buy like a whole piece
Yeah.
there.
You know, you're always welcome up here.
Yeah. I didn't even know. I was up there not that long ago to pick up the cart and I went to Wojimaya, which is cool too. but H Mart is like really got it going on.
So is everybody getting that skin off? Is it going all right? Yeah. Looks good. Looks really good, Eileen.
Okay.
Ours has a lot of bone in it, so kind of tricky. Would you recommend
Okay.
cutting around it, like cutting into the parts we know we can get through, and then
Yeah, you can cut it into workable chunks as well. So if there's like a bone, say there was a bone like right in the middle here, what I'd probably do is kind of find where that bone is and just cut this into like 2 pieces so that I could just kind of cut out that bone and then remove.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to run into it with your knife and it's going to kind of hang you up there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, little puzzle.
All right. Looks like everybody got the skin off their fish.
Love it. Okay. So if your piece has a big chunk of the bloodline like mine does here, that's nice to just sort of slice that off. And anytime you're cutting the fish, it's good to do nice long drawing strokes. That's going to leave a much cleaner cut.
Yeah, Matt, that red part is the blood there. Yeah, that's what we're trimming off.
Cool. Pretty happy with my piece here. So I've got a nice sort of chunk here. No blood. And so this is basically the size of my slices I'm going to do. There's like a lot of different ways to slice fish that you'll notice if you like sit at a sushi counter. But this is sort of known as the sashimi cut. So like if you're doing nigiri, which is the ones that are kind of wrapped around a piece of rice, you'll cut it more at an angle because you want to get this nice long strip that does that. With the sashimi, it's a little easier if you have a nice block like this. And you're just going to cut basically like you're slicing a vegetable. So you're just going to use nice drawing strokes. If your knife is nice and sharp, it might just cut straight through in one pass. Mine didn't quite. So I just did a couple passes. It's better to do a couple passes this way, drawing strokes, than to saw at it. You'll end up with kind of funky looking stuff and you might put a lot of pressure on the fish. So just as you go, about 1/4 inch strips here. And we're just going to slice all of the hamachi. Nice long drawing strokes.
And yeah, from what I've learned, it's good to try and use the entire blade of your knife. And it looks like most of you have that and have got it down.
What's nice about hamachi, besides the bone and the skin aspect of it right there, it is a pretty forgiving fish to cut. It's not like albacore tuna is one of the hardest to cut nicely because it has a lot of membrane in there and
It's so soft.
Yeah, it's so soft, so it just falls apart on you really fast. This is a little more like cutting warm butter or something.
Alex, my plans just canceled, so maybe I will drive over and pick up some food from you if there's
You
extra.
should.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna.
have an extra portion because my mom doesn't eat meat.
Yes.
So I have extra over here. Mm. So delicious.
Oh, I can't wait.
Cool. Let me know when everyone's there. Feel free to have a courtesy slice as a taste if you'd like.
Yeah, it's always good to taste the fish before you marinate it too, when you have such high quality fish, so you really understand the role that the marinade is playing. Looks like Matt and Kelsey are done.
Cool.
They want to know if they should throw away the bloodline and the skin.
Yeah, I would do that with this one.
How's the fish slicing going? All right, Linda's done. How's it taste? Hamachi is so fatty.
So, yeah. I'm gonna wash up here. I think I realized I glazed over the turnip, so we'll just want to get that sliced here. Did everyone peel their turnip ahead of time? If not,
Yes.
that'd be a good place to start. Everyone did that?
Yes.
Everyone but me? I'll do as everyone cleans up their little workspace here. The reason I peel these turnips right now is just because in the springtime, usually, the young turnips can be delicious. The whole everything, the skin. Just as the winter turnips, in my experience, the skin can be a little more bitter and it's not quite as delicious. And since we're having it raw, it's nice to not have anything that's not delicious in there. So you have your turnip. We're just going to cut it lengthwise into quarters. Like this. And then we're just going to thinly slice those quarters. So you'll end up with little pie slices here.
You want to show us one of the
Yeah,
slices?
just like that. Kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Linda's got a big old turnip.
Big one. You could cut that into maybe that half into thirds lengthwise. One more pizza slices. And you should taste it again. I like eating turnips raw like this, thinly sliced. They just, when you have some really nice, maybe more delicate flavors like this going on in the dish, because it's not very spicy like a radish. It still has that really refreshing flavor to it. Adds a little bit of texture because everything else in this dish is so soft.
So give us a thumbs up when you're done slicing your turnip. Looking good. All
I
right.
realized I was crunching a turnip loudly into my headphones here. Uh, so everyone has a little turnip action. You've got some sliced hamachi. Now we're basically at the plating point here. So take a plate that you like. I'll use this one. And we're just gonna alternate the hamachi and the segments here. If you've got really fat segments, if you had a huge grapefruit, you could slice it to be thinner. Mine ended up pretty nice. Just every grapefruit's a little bit different. And I just like to layer it. Like so. Just nice and quick and easy. Like this.
Beautiful.
Layered hamachi. I'm gonna take a little bit of salt since we haven't seasoned the fish at all. Just a little bit because the leche de tigre is pretty salty, but just so it does have a little something to it in the grapefruit. And then I'll take the leche de tigre here. And instead of like covering the fish with it, I'm just gonna put it on the sides here of the fish. Just like that. Everyone should have some sesame oil as well, I believe. So now's a good time to get that out. Put some of my turnip pieces here. I just kind of like to scatter them across the top there. And then I have some sesame oil here, and I'll just do a quick little drizzle of sesame oil. And mine sort of ended up looking like that, I guess.
Beautiful.
You can see that.
Yeah, take a picture of your tiradito. I would love to see how you guys
Yeah, me too.
do your own little decorative flares.
Last class, it was so cool to see everyone's things. But I forgot to take a picture of mine last time, so I'll do it this time. Okay, so I'm gonna set that aside, which is kind of nice. I don't like to do this one very far in advance because the tigre does too much work to the fish, but it is nice to give it a couple minutes to just sort of just start to kind of slightly cure just the edges of the fish so you get a little bit of different texture and flavor there with the fish. At this point, I'm gonna wipe up my little area here. If I can find my towel. Ah, there it is. And we'll put the ice, or we'll mix our punch here now. So you'll want to get out your brandy, your sake, juice, and the oleosaccharum syrup that we made. You'll want a strainer. I ideally a bigger one, or you can use tongs to just remove the peels, but I like a strainer because it allows you to sort of really get all the goodness out of there. I'll put this over my other mixing bowl. And I'm just going to pour syrup here.
So even if you haven't finished plating all of your Tiramisu, you can go back to that. But we're just going to mix the punch right now. We're straining the oleosaccharum through a mesh strainer to get the citrus peels out of it.
When you get it in the strainer, you know, just mix it around a bit and kind of try and press any little excess syrup out of there to get all that. These peels you can definitely save and do stuff with now that they're not like fully candied at this point, but you could continue the process and candy them in some more sugar and water, make like a nice candied peel, or use them to flavor something else. They still probably have a good bit of flavor there. So I'm going to set those aside and not throw them away, do something with them. Now I've got my syrup here. And I'm going to mix my punch in this fancy plastic container. So because we're not quite sure of the specific concentration of sugar in our fruit and the sourness of the lemons, all that sort of stuff, I'm going to start by adding the brandy and the sake. So you'll want to add 1 cup each, brandy and sake, to your chosen vessel, a pitcher or a punch bowl or a cambro here. I'm also kind of curious what everyone got for their brandy or cognac, or feel free to show
We got some
E&J brandy.
We got something over here. Matt, what kind is that? Is that
Some Remy Martin. Ooh, Maison Rouge.
that looks
You got
good.
the last bottle of that or what? They were sold out. They were sold out of so many of the entry nice but not crazy expensive cognacs. Oh, nice. Lucky guy.
All right. 1 cup of brandy and 1 cup of sake.
And
then Jalila's got Courvoisier.
hey, here we go. Classic. I've got 1 and 1. It should look milky and smell pretty good. And then I'm going to start with 1 cup each as well of my syrup and my juice here.
Equal parts of everything.
Equal parts everything. If you don't know and you think it might work, equal parts everything is a good spot to start.
Some bold advice right there.
An easy, be great if it works out.
Yeah.
Just give it a quick stir and a taste. Wow. Mine might have worked.
Yes.
So I'm going to add a little extra juice to mine because you want it to be and probably a little extra of the syrup. You haven't added any ice or soda water at this point. So we want it to be a little extra puckery and sweet probably, because chemically, as you add the ice and as you chill everything down, you're going to taste less of the sugar. So if it tastes a little extra sweet and a little extra sour right now, that's probably right where you want to be. Some other fun stuff you can add to this bunch. This is a really basic one. Some certain things like maraschino liqueur can add a nice little candy sort of Jolly Rancher aspect to it, which is really yummy and punchy. Hey, there you go. A little bit of Aperol or Campari can add a little bit of a bitter intrigue to it. I wouldn't recommend necessarily all of these things at the same time. Some flavored bitters, walnut bitters could be yummy in here. Or but little things that you like. You can take this base recipe in a lot of different directions. But right now it should be tasting kind of like an orange popsicle or like the Botan rice candies that you get at the Asian market. That's what I always think it tastes like, and that's why I really like it. I grew up eating those at Christmas every year. So a little bit ricey and very, very orangey flavor. I like where mine is at. And I'm gonna enjoy this later. So I'm gonna set it away. For you, you should, if you're gonna enjoy your punch now, I suggest adding about equal parts ice into there and letting it sit until you're ready to enjoy it. And then serving it into a glass and just topping it with a little splash of soda and a couple of your beautiful Caracara wheels. At this point, we should finish off our soba. So hopefully everyone has that soba water pretty nice and hot. You can bring that up quickly to a boil here. Mine is there. You'll want a strainer, some bowls to serve into. If you have little noodle baskets like these, you can use these. If you're using just a nice sort of medium pot, you can just throw all your noodles in there and then pour out into a strainer over the sink, however you want to do it. My noodles are supposed to cook for 5 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. Your package probably said something specific. Usually it's between 4 and 5 minutes. So I would recommend following that. But whatever it says, go ahead and start on that as soon as you can. Once you've got your noodles in the pot, go ahead and put your chicken back into your broth just to warm it up a little bit. You can turn that chicken up if it seems like your broth has lost some temperature there. Make sure that everything's nice and hot. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't run out of gas here.
Me too.
That was bizarre. I have 2 full tanks, so even hard. So that's working. Make sure you're ready with your strainer over your sink if that's how you're doing it, so that as soon as your timer goes off, you can bail it out and you don't overcook your noodles. To plate this, we're going to want matchsticks, our little batons of leeks. We want our citrus kosho, which should have sort of taken on a deeper color at this point. This is what mine looks like here. I'm just gonna, in each bowl, at this point, I'm just gonna put a spoonful of this because we're gonna mix it in with our pasta. Well, I'm only gonna make one for now. With our soba and broth, will all get mixed up right in here. Obviously, if you thought yours was really spicy, too spicy for you, just add a little less here in the bowl, and then you can adjust as you go. It's nice to periodically give your noodles a quick little stir. These don't stick to each other as much as like a ramen noodle does, but it's nice to ensure some even cooking there. Another thing you can do in this meantime is taste your broth here. See how salty it is. Careful not to burn yourself. And remember, your condiment here that you're adding is fairly salty, so you don't want to be riding the line of being too salty before you add that. But you want it to taste good already. It shouldn't taste watery at this point. It should have a nice deep flavor. Okay. My noodles are just finishing up here. Nice and salty. Okay. When your noodles are done, go ahead and bail them out, however you're going to do that. And I'm just quickly mixing it together. One portion of noodles here with that yuzu or citrus kosho here. You can also give it a little taste at this point. Think about how spicy your noodles are here. I'm liking that. So it's just removing the noodles, portioning them into the bowls, stirring it up with the citrus kosho, adding about 8 ounces of broth into the bowl. And 1 piece of chicken, or I guess however many you want. I'm just going to do 1. And if you don't like the texture or taste of the skin, you don't have to eat it, obviously, but I like it. And put the chicken right on top of your noodles there. And I like to just put a nice little bundle leeks. And I like mine to be very yuzu kosho or citrus kosho flavor. So I'll add plenty just kind of right on top there of everything. That's what mine looks like. You can see it past the steam. Again, I'd love to see photos of how everybody does it, what your kosho looks like. I'm sure everyone's will be a little different depending on what kind of chiles you used. Ooh.
So yeah, the final steps there were to mix your cooked noodles with your kosho and taste them. And then top each portion of noodles with a cup of broth and a piece of chicken, your matchstick batons of the white part of the leek, and any additional kosho on top if you want a little extra kick of flavor.
I do recommend, as long as it's not going to be too spicy for you, because getting a lot of that citrus rind flavor in there, I think, is what really makes this dish, because there's not so much going on here. You know, it's very, very simple.
How is everybody feeling? You are basically coming to the end of your class. If anybody's feeling confused or like they need any extra instruction at this point, now is a great time to ask any questions. Otherwise, pour yourself a glass of punch and enjoy your feast.
Emily, are you talking to us? Because we can't hear you.
Sorry, no, I was talking to Zach. I was reading.
Okay. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions. This looks super tasty.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for signing up. It's a really fun time as always. I hope everyone really enjoys the food and can use these dishes and techniques in the future and put your own twist on it. I always love to hear how people take these things and make them their own in the future, because that's kind of what my cooking style and the Nikkei Japanese immigrant cooking is all about, you know, taking dishes and seeing how they evolve over time and place. So I'd love to hear from you all in the future.
Thank you. My dinner guests are here and I have delicious dishes to give them. So thank you.
Bye, Linda.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm going to send out a survey along with the recording of class. And you can send us any pictures or tag Instagram, Yabai Nikkei and How Cooking School, if you do that kind of thing. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
I know, Luigi.
Bye, baby.
Bye.
So cute.
Oh my God, so cute. Thanks for coming, Matt. All right.
Cool.
Good job. That was great.
Thanks. We did it on time, basically.
Yeah, it was perfect. The
Great.
timing was perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna run over there. I'll bring containers.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.